Not My Problem is the story of Aideen, who has lots of problems in her own life. Her mum is drinking too much, her schoolwork is really suffering, and her best friend is pulling away from her. But she doesn't want to think about any of those problems. She does find out, though, that she's really good at fixing other people's problems. And this kind of starts with her nemesis, Maeve, who she pushes down the stairs so that Maeve can kind of get out of some of her classes and focus on other things because she's a bit of a high achiever. Soon Aideen is collecting clients from school, other students who wanted her to fix their problems. And so she decides to sort of set up a social enterprise where she will do favours for people, but they kind of have to owe her a favour in return. I wrote this book because I really wanted to tell a story of a girl who is really struggling with her own problems, but is sort of in denial about this and doesn't want to think about it. She uses her many gifts to sort of help the people around her, but doesn't see how she can use those to help herself. I think generally we like to not think about our own problems. We like to avoid our problems and hope that they're just going to sort of work themselves out, which is kind of what Aideen is hoping. She can't control what will happen if she asks for help, so she tries to just keep it all under wraps. I think this kind of works out worse for most people, but we kind of have to learn that lesson as we go along. For Aideen, this way of working kind of results in lots of funny shenanigans and hijinks that she gets up to with other friends in the school, but ultimately when she goes home, her problems are still there. So one of the key themes of the book then is avoidance, how we avoid our own problems and how that kind of creates more of a mess for us. You see Aideen avoiding problems at home, at school, with her friendships, and how that sort of impacts on her. There's a storyline then about friendship and how Aideen is avoiding the problem with her friend Holly. They're sort of growing apart after being friends for a really long time, and neither of them wants to acknowledge that it's happening. They kind of cope with that then in different ways. Aideen likes to sort of ignore that it's happening. She doesn't want to talk about it. She won't confront her friend, but her friend, her way of managing it is kind of means that she doesn't treat Aideen particularly well. Sometimes she can be a bit snappy or mean or rude or, leave her out of things. And neither of them want to actually talk about what's happening because they don't want to face the fact that after all this time, they're growing apart. This is just one of the themes of the book, and obviously books have many themes that kind of run through them, but this is the one that I sort of started with when I started writing the book. I had this idea of a girl who swaps favours in her class, but I needed to think about, well, why would she want to do that? And that led me to this idea of people avoiding their own problems. So some authors, when they start writing the book, they don't have a theme in mind. They might have a story in mind, but the themes kind of emerge naturally. And other people are like me, where they kind of start off with a theme. I feel like I can't get into writing something unless I know what it is I want to say. This doesn't mean that I feel like I need to teach the reader a lesson or there needs to be sort of a moral of the story in that sense, but there has to be a reason why I'm telling this story and what it means to me. So one of the things that I like to use when I'm trying to plan what's going to happen in my story, or if I get stuck, I like to think back to some of those themes, and to do that I really boil them down into, like a cliche or a proverb, something that I can remember easily. And even I think really complex stories you can sort of boil their themes down into a really easy to remember cliche. If you think about Macbeth, one of the themes is that power corrupts, or you could say that The Great Gatsby is in part about how money can't buy happiness. That kind of helps you kind of stay focused, I think, on what the story is about. And then when you're not sure what should happen next, you might be able to think back to your theme and think, well, what fits with that? So for Not My Problem, the thing that I kind of kept in mind was, you can't run away from your problems. That just makes them worse. You have to face them. It's a really simple idea to think about, but it helped me stay focused on what I wanted to say. So if you're thinking about a prompt for your own creative work, that's what I would recommend. I would say start with a theme. Make it as simple as you possibly can, even if it seems like a cliche. that can help you sort of stay on track with what you want to do. So some ideas for cliches might be things like love conquers all, all's fair in love and war, love is blind. Those might lead you in a romantic direction. Other ideas might be things like be yourself, everyone else is taken. The wrong choices will lead us to the right places. Everything is meant to be. Friends are the family that you choose for yourself. So whatever it is, you can either approach that from a position of this is what your character is going to learn over the course of the story, or it might be something that they believe in the beginning and then at the end they don't believe it anymore. So have a think about something that makes sense for you and see what comes out of it.